1,200 kilometers off the coast of Mexico lies a lost and little-known island, Clipperton, a tiny atoll whipped by winds and battered by Pacific breakers. Explorer Jean-Louis Etienne set sail to discover this unique ecosystem. He and his family, along with an international team of scientists, will live on the island for 4 months. Within a few days, a small village springs up on the ring of coral. The 40 scientists get down to exploring the unique biodiversity of this special island, the island at the end of the world. Every year, after the cyclone season has laid its trail of devastation across the Pacific, a great gathering takes place on the far-flung atoll of Clipperton. Then, half the world's population of masked boobies congregates on the island. These great seabirds fly back and forth over the vast blue ocean, yet always return to their atoll to reproduce. They navigate according to the position of the sun. The masked boobies make their nests all around the camp and along the whole 12 kilometers of coral which forms this atoll. The population of this colony, by far the largest in the world, is estimated at 120,000 birds. French ornithologists Mathieu Lecour and Henry Weimerkirch have come to study the colony. Masked boobies are heavy and clumsy. They can't maneuver in amongst the trunks of the coconut palms and need a long runway for landing and taking off. The coconut grove is the domain of the green-footed brown boobies and the red-footed boobies. They have made their nests in the shadow of the tall palm trees. Clipperton offers good shelter. Three ornithologists have come to study their species. Charlie Boast from France, and the Americans Lisa Balance and Robert Pittman. They weigh and measure the atoll's birds and chicks and study what food they eat. One of the major attractions of Clipperton for many of these migratory birds is the closed freshwater lagoon. It contains a mixture of rainwater and seawater filtered through the coral, and is the only freshwater to be found throughout the vast eastern Pacific. It provides a haven for water hens, coots, and sandpipers who come here to rest and have their young. The ornithologists are going to establish records of the 30 visiting species which every year stop over on the atoll: noddies, sooty terns, white-tailed tropic birds, herons, and frigate birds. The smaller migratory birds are threatened by the rats on the island. The rodents came ashore after a ship ran aground several years ago. They invaded the island and now attack the birds' nests. Even the larger masked boobies can fall victim to the rats. The rodents eat the crabs, while the crabs feed on the vegetation. If the crabs disappear from the island, it will soon be covered in vegetation, and there will be no more suitable nesting sites for the masked boobies. The red-footed, green-footed, and white boobies only eat fish. Studying what they catch will give a good indication of whether the ocean around Clipperton is in a healthy state. Charlie investigates their diet.
When you handle the adult red-footed booby, its natural reaction is to regurgitate the fish it has caught and is saving in its stomach. This is a defense against predators that the animal adopts automatically when it is handled or feels threatened. And it allows us to study the bird's food without depriving its growing chicks. That's one of the great advantages of studying these seabirds in the tropics. Birds in temperate or northern latitudes don't behave like this. So here are two flying fish the red-footed booby caught the last time it flew out to sea. Fish that this booby was getting ready to feed to its chick.
Red-footed boobies, they forage with the tunas, and the tunas chase the flying fish, and then they fly out of the air, and the red-footed booby comes along behind it and catches them right out of the air. We have identified and measured the fish. What we'd like to do now is give it back to the chick. Well, we'll see what's going to happen. That's good enough. Good. Well done. She'll feed it back to the chick after we leave.
Preliminary analyses show that a chick needs to eat around 400 grams of fish per day. The brown booby chicks are not yet born. Their parents are still performing their mating rituals. Much of this activity takes place in the morning when they have a little bit of time before heading out to the sea to search for fish. If the female doesn't respond to the male's attentions, he flies round in a circle, hoping that when he lands again, she'll sit up and take notice. These thousands of birds drop 2 to 3 tons of phosphate and nitrate-rich guano on the atoll every day. In the 1950s, there was a phosphate collecting factory located here. Jean-Louis Etienne brings up this important aspect of life on Clipperton during a web conference with the Natural History Museum in Paris.
Just now, as I was at the bar having a coffee, somebody was hanging out their washing. It's something you don't think about. Here, washing dries very quickly with the wind and the warm temperatures. But you have to dry your washing under cover. You can't leave anything outside because it would get coated in droppings. Of course, there's wealth from it. This island's rich in phosphate because of it. Professor Jean Touchette from Lyon, who's a specialist in phosphate, came on a trip here and he got very excited about it. There's phosphate everywhere.
The birds like perching on the solar panels, so the droppings have to be cleaned off to ensure there's enough electricity for the camp. This job has to be done again and again. In the laboratory, Henry and Matthew are studying the wings of these great lords of the skies. Their wings are vital to their survival. These birds that soar above the wide open oceans need to fly as efficiently as possible. To keep their wings in tip-top condition, their feathers molt once a year. A gland at their rump just under the tail secretes an oil, which the booby, using its beak, spreads over its feathers to make them waterproof. The ornithologists pursue their study of the masked boobies. The colony on Clipperton has come a long way since the 1950s, when a Mexican garrison introduced pigs to the island. These greedy mammals ate up the eggs and chicks until there were only 100 pairs of masked boobies left. Finally, one day, in 1958, an American scientist took a rifle and shot all the pigs. The colony then gradually recovered. Setting aside the problem of the rats, it seems another new blight has struck the island. The number of dead birds is unusually high. The ornithologists are trying to establish what's causing this. For the first time, 50 masked boobies are tagged with speed and depth recorders and GPS transmitters, which will supply the position of the bird every 6 seconds. This information will tell the experts how long they spend gliding, flying, floating on the water, and accelerating, either vertically or horizontally. The harmless paint makes them stand out amidst the colony. It'll fade within a few weeks. This animation shows just how this extraordinary bird catches its fish. The masked booby seems to home in on distant schools of dolphin or tuna. These, when hunting, drive the shoals of fish up towards the sea surface where they can be rounded up more easily, and this also makes things easier for the seabirds. This extraordinary hunting sequence was filmed in the open ocean. This kind of scene can sadly no longer be observed around Clipperton. Mexican factory ships leased by Japan extract nearly 600,000 tons of tuna a year from the area, and so there are no big fish to drive the small ones up to the surface. This forces the boobies to fish much further away, where they can still find banks of tuna. The birds run a real risk of dying from exhaustion. When the adult boobies are full, they slow down the digestion of the last fish they consumed by means of a kind of mucus which covers the food as it arrives in the stomach. The food is stored like this during the long flight back to be given to the chicks. Every day, the boobies of Clipperton catch 30 tons of fish from the ocean.
I'm waiting for 2 birds. A female tagged with a speedometer, female 41, and a female carrying a micro GPS, female 33. I hope we'll have them by tonight. It looks like the birds are beginning to return. What's often fascinating about when they come back is that they do it in waves. There's times when nothing's happening, and the next minute there's hundreds of birds all coming back at the same time, and you get the sense of a massive arrival coming from the sea, as if all the birds, at some time or other, had got together out over the ocean. Then they follow each other and come back to Clipperton together. What we have to understand is that it's difficult for them to find food. Food is scarce, and they have to go a long way to find it. Sometimes they have to dive 30 to 50 times a day. All that to catch, what, 5, 6, 7 fish?
The adults and their chicks find each other by recognizing each other's calls and behavior. The chick will gorge itself and accumulate fat till it nearly weighs more than its parents. This extra fat will help it survive during the months when it's learning to fly, dive, and catch its own fish, and won't always be successful.
By studying these birds' food day to day, we can get an accurate picture of the fish population in the Clipperton archipelago, especially the flying fish. An expedition on this scale doesn't have the resources to go and catch fish and take samples hundreds of kilometers from the island. Thanks to the seabirds and the devices they carry, and by examining their food when they come back, we can build up a very precise picture of the type of fish they catch. And we get to look at species that are normally very difficult to study, like flying fish.
The boobies have to be alert. Any fish that goes astray during the delicate process of regurgitation can end up in the claws of the crabs. These are real opportunists and never pass up the chance for a free lunch.
The boobies are really fascinating birds. There's a young brown booby who was near us when we were making our first observations. He clearly sensed it was in his interest to stay close. And then one time we gave him a little fish, and since that day he's followed us around like a dog. We only fed him once, but he understood that maybe there was something to be gained by hanging around.
The problem is that the wing should be, when we pull it out, it should lie fairly flat. There's a bend here, an abnormal bend. The bird can't stretch its wing out the way it needs to in order to fly.
The ornithologists believe there may be a problem of inbreeding amongst the birds here, left over from the time when the colony merely numbered 100 or so. But scarcity of food could also be responsible, as the resources around Clipperton are sometimes too limited. The evening is the best time to catch the birds coming back from fishing and study their regurgitated food. The brown booby Charlie fed once before follows the scientists around like a shadow, hoping to be given another fish. Apart from the bird's feeding habits, laboratory analysis of regurgitated food can also indicate the level of pollution in the ocean. Bob catches his first masked booby, a delicate operation.
It's like a bread knife or a hacksaw. And it has a pretty mean bite and a beautiful yellow eye. These are very tough birds. They dive from 50, 60 meters sometimes. They hit the water probably doing 50, 60 kilometers an hour, and they have very, very strong necks and very stout bodies, and they bite really hard. So they're tough little birds. There's a couple little lines running down here, and that's actually where the bird came down and caught the fish just like this. This fish was probably swimming under the water. The booby dove maybe 4, 6, 8 meters down underwater and caught it right here like this, brought it to the surface, threw it up in the air, and swallowed it just like that. If they swallow it tail first, then they have this problem. So invariably, they come back to the surface with a fish in their mouth like that, they throw it up in the air, just like that. So this particular bird, he's got, there's 3 different species of flying fish there, plus this other reef fish, and here's a little squid he caught, so. Nice catch.
The faithful brown booby's attentions finally pay off. The fieldwork sessions begin at dawn when the birds go to sea and only finish late in the evening when they return and feeding is over. The boobies rest at night, so the ornithologists can have a little time to relax. That night, computer expert Camille Fressa organizes a show of drawings sent by children in hospital. The expedition is in regular contact with several hospitals, and the children can follow the Clipperton adventure day by day on the internet. The whole team will take part in judging the drawing competition this evening. Early in the morning, the young boobies are at their most active. Instinctively, they practice their fishing skills by juggling with coconut shell fragments and bits of coral. Clipperton is not only unique in having a huge colony of masked boobies, but also in having a major colony of frigate birds. The team of ornithologists is about to make an important discovery. Bob Pittman has made brief visits to Clipperton a dozen times during the last 20 years, and it's the first time he's actually seen a frigate bird's nest here.
We're pretty excited about it. There's usually a couple of thousand frigate birds here. They've been recorded here for over 100 years, and this is the first time they've decided to nest here. So some of these birds probably fly for a couple of years without ever landing, and they come to Clipperton Island, and it's a good opportunity to come sit and rest for a while. And if there's no vegetation, then they'll sit on the ground. So.
Almost everywhere else in the world, frigate birds make their nests high up in trees and tall bushes. They're clumsy on the ground, and unlike the boobies, cannot run to build up speed for takeoff. But on Clipperton, the constant wind that sweeps the island allows them to take flight just by spreading their wings. One push with the legs, and off they go, into the air. The frigate birds get a lot of their food by stealing the boobies' catch when they return from fishing. Unlike the boobies, they can't dive into the water, but they're much more agile, which makes them tremendous hunters. They harass this booby as it skims above the waves until it regurgitates its fish. In the middle of the day, when it's hottest, the bird colonies are less active. At this time, the ornithologists and their teams head to the field labs, where they're putting together a preliminary status report.
It's for you. Can you give me the link?
Oh yes, this was last night?
Charlie, Lisa, and Bob have been able to study 234 regurgitations and are now compiling their results to get some statistics.
Birds here are very they're very unafraid, and because people haven't been here, and you can study birds as they were hundreds of thousands of years ago, just largely undisturbed. So it's kind of a rare situation. I think what makes Clipperton most special of all is that it's where it's located. Clipperton is in some of the most productive tropical waters in the world, and it's such an isolated island. It's the only place that these birds can breed, so they come here in huge numbers. And
we found a bullet tuna in one masked booby that regurgitated it for its chick, and it was about this long, about this big around. Quite a big fish.
Clipperton's really a dream for anyone who studies seabirds. It's an island that seemed completely inaccessible, that shelters an extraordinary bird population. It's true that the Jean-Louis Etienne expedition has been a great leap forward for us, an unexpected chance to be able finally to carry out some research on these birds.
A female booby will often lay 2 eggs to increase the species' chance of survival. This is part of the way they adapt to having a completely unpredictable food supply. Yet only one chick will survive. The first chick, if it's well fed, will often kill the second one so as not to suffer any competition. On Clipperton, as so often in nature, it's the survival of the fittest. Late that evening, after 6 days away, one of the parents of the malformed chick that Bob and Lisa have been studying arrives to feed it. This deformed chick is a juvenile and is already 2.5 years old. It has only survived because its parents have continued to feed it. This is a very rare phenomenon in the animal world, where a young weakling is often abandoned or killed by a predator. In 4 months, the ornithologists have been able to judge just how fragile this ecosystem is. It was thought that Clipperton's isolation was its best protection, but nowadays illegal overfishing endangers even this remote place. Scientists and Jean-Louis Etienne alike are in favor of establishing a permanent observation post here. The boobies of Clipperton, as well as its crabs, its coral reef, and its tuna, could be vital indicators of the state of our planet's health.